She thought you would chase her. She thought you would follow the breadcrumbs, that you would unravel yourself piece by piece just to be nearer to her orbit. But you didn't. You vanished. And in doing so, you awakened something far more powerful than any desperate grasp ever could. You awakened mystery, scarcity, and a sharp awareness of your own self-worth. Welcome to the Everlasting Stoic, where we embrace not the shallow reactions of the moment, but the disciplined mastery of the self. In this video, we dive deeper than most are willing to go into why sometimes the greatest power lies not in what you say or what you do, but in what you choose to withhold. Today, we explore the subtle art of emotional restraint, the magnificent force of strategic disappearance, and the unshakable confidence that is born when a person, especially a man, refuses to chase validation outside himself. If you are serious about reclaiming your own narrative, about becoming someone who leads, who inspires without trying, and who thrives regardless of external validation, then you are exactly where you need to be. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the Everlasting Stoic. This channel is your companion on the journey to mastering yourself in relationships, in discipline, and in life. Hit the like button, because even the smallest action can ripple outward into a tide of growth. Now, prepare yourself for a real transformation. Let's begin. 1. Emotional restraint is magnetic. There is a strange, almost paradoxical power that resides in emotional restraint. It is a form of quiet dominance that cannot be faked, and it cannot be manufactured overnight. It emanates from those who are deeply grounded in themselves, who have cultivated an inner world so rich, so complete, that the approval of others becomes optional noise in the background of their symphony. When she expected you to chase, what she was really testing, consciously or unconsciously, was the strength of your emotional control. Would you leap at the first signal? Would you let the gravitational pull of her presence throw you out of your orbit? Or would you instead remain planted in your center, unmoved, forcing her to reevaluate her own assumptions about what a grounded soul truly looks like? Restraint, you see, is not about apathy. It is about selection. It is about having such an abundance of inner richness that you can afford to be discerning, that you can afford to wait, that you can afford to walk away. A stoic man, an everlasting stoic, knows that chasing is not the pathway to love, respect, or influence. Chasing is the pathway to erosion. To diminish yourself to pursue another is to volunteer for your own invisibility. You become another background character in their story rather than a sovereign author of your own. Emotional restraint flips the script. It forces the other to wonder instead of assume. It creates a vacuum, a silence, a space that their mind rushes to fill with meaning. And in relationships, mystery is often far more powerful than presence. Why is restraint magnetic? Because it signals mastery. Because it hints that you have options. Because it shows you are loyal first and foremost to your mission, your growth, your integrity, not to the fleeting whims of external validation. Imagine standing before a roaring crowd, and instead of shouting louder to win their attention, you lower your voice. You speak slower. You allow the silence between your words to grow heavy. What happens? The crowd leans in. They strain to catch your next sentence. They gift you their focus without even realizing they are doing it. Such is the effect of emotional restraint in human connection. But this is not without cost. Restraint often means embracing loneliness in the short term. It demands that you stay committed to yourself, even when the easy path, the eager reply, the desperate call, the needy apology tempts you. It demands that you trust in a process that has no immediate rewards. In a world addicted to instant gratification, restraint is an act of rebellion. It is the art of the long game. It is the silent battle against the easy path. And every time you choose it, you forge yourself anew. Consider, too, that many people are unaware of what they truly seek. They might say they want someone attentive, devoted, always present, but the truth often hides deeper. What they crave is energy, vitality, a sense of aliveness that only comes from being drawn toward something just out of reach. Chasing kills that energy. Restraint fuels it. When you refused to chase, when you vanished instead of scrambling, you allowed space for that magnetic tension to form. You gave the other person the invaluable opportunity to confront their own emotions, their own assumptions. You let reality do your talking. In the moments where you feel the urge to break your restraint, remember, it is not a sign of strength to speak just because you can. It is not proof of love to beg just because you miss. It is not courage to chase just because you are afraid of silence. True courage is sitting with the silence. True courage is letting the fear pass through you, like a storm through ancient mountains, leaving the peaks unmoved, scarred, but still standing. Every relationship worth having will survive your restraint. And every relationship that collapses because you refuse to chase was never strong enough to stand beside you on your journey anyway. Now, I want you to reflect for a moment. Have you ever witnessed your emotional restraint change the way someone perceived you? Have you ever felt that strange, almost electric shift when you held back instead of reaching out? If so, I invite you to share your story in the comments below. Your journey, your battles and victories might just be the spark someone else needs today. And if you are committing right now to practicing emotional restraint in your life, comment this affirmation: I will not betray my own soul for momentary validation. Write it, own it, live it. Your journey toward everlasting stoicism has already begun. Now let us move deeper. 2. Reverse psychology at its finest. There is a fascinating phenomenon that plays out when you stop pursuing someone who expects to be chased. It is not just that you deny them the gratification of being desired. It is that you invert the entire dynamic. You force their subconscious to wrestle with a new and uncomfortable reality. If he is not chasing me, does he not value me? Is he beyond me? Did I miscalculate? This is not manipulation in the petty sense. This is the fundamental truth of human psychology. We value what we must work for. When you withhold your presence, not out of spite, but out of self-respect, you trigger a primal form of reverse psychology that no words could ever achieve. You create space. You introduce scarcity. And scarcity, in any market, in any relationship, multiplies value. You must understand, when someone expects you to chase them, they are operating from a position of perceived superiority. They assume the upper hand. They assume the script is written. You will dance. They will sit back and decide. But when you remove yourself from the board, you shatter the script entirely. You flip the table over. You force them to ask questions they never intended to face. Why is he not running after me? Why does he seem... Freedom is magnetic. A man or a woman who exudes genuine freedom, not performative arrogance, but true detachment, becomes a puzzle, a mystery. And human beings are wired to resolve mysteries, to understand, to conquer what feels just out of reach. In removing yourself, you become that mystery. In refusing to chase, you become the unfinished story in their mind. And here is the profound irony. Most people, when rejected or ignored, instinctively chase harder. They double down. They break their own dignity wide open in an attempt to force attention, to force recognition. But the wise, the stoic, the rare, do the opposite. They lean back. They decrease their efforts. And in doing so, they amplify their perceived value. It is essential, however, that your absence is authentic. You cannot pretend. You cannot fake emotional detachment while obsessively checking your phone, stalking their social media, or secretly strategizing your next move. True reverse psychology only works when your soul has genuinely moved beyond the need for external validation. When your world is so rich, so full of purpose, ambition, growth, that the loss of one attention source barely ruffles your spirit. When you can genuinely say, "I would rather lose 1,000 shallow admirers than betray my own mission for a single fleeting smile," then, and only then, have you mastered the art. And do not be surprised if you find that in the space your absence created, they begin reaching out, first subtly, then overtly, first in curiosity, then in confusion, then in desire. But the Stoic must be vigilant. The goal was never to make them chase you. The goal was always to reclaim your dignity, your self-respect, your sovereignty. If they return, they return. If they do not, your path remains unshaken. Your emotional landscape is not at the mercy of another's validation. It is rooted, like an ancient oak, unmoved by the winds of approval or rejection alike. Ask yourself now, when have you seen the power of your absence create more impact than your presence ever could? What would your life look like if you trusted this principle fully? Not just in love, but in every negotiation, every relationship, every endeavor. Reflect on this. And if you are ready to embrace the silent power of strategic absence, write this in the comments. I am the scarce flame. I am not for the hands of the unworthy. Stand by these words. Let them carve themselves into your actions. Now, let us move onward to the forge where true growth begins. 3. Growth through discomfort. Discomfort is the birthplace of all meaningful growth. Not pleasure, not comfort, not validation. Discomfort. When you vanish instead of chasing. When you resist the easy urge to seek, to explain, to plead. You willingly step into the fire of discomfort. You face the haunting silence. You sit with the gnawing questions that demand answers your mind is desperate to provide. You resist the temptation to relieve your own suffering by reaching outward, and in doing so, you grow in ways the comfortable never will. Understand this. Growth requires sacrifice, not the sacrifice of your pride in desperate pursuit of another, but the sacrifice of your immediate emotional relief. When you refuse to chase, when you hold your ground against the raging inner voice begging you to seek contact, you are sharpening yourself like a blade against stone. You are teaching your mind and spirit, I am not owned by my emotions. I am not governed by fleeting cravings. I can suffer temporary loneliness for the sake of permanent power. Most people fold under discomfort. They send that text. They make that call. They apologize for things they never did wrong, just to restore a shattered connection. But the Stoic embraces the pain. He welcomes the discomfort as a signal, not of failure, but of forging. Think of the blacksmith hammering molten steel. Each blow is violent, brutal, full of sparks and screams. But without that agony, the steel remains soft, shapeless. The fire you endure in your silence, the ache of your self-restraint is the same. You are not breaking, you are hardening. And there is another truth hidden here. Discomfort is the ultimate truth teller. When you withhold your pursuit, when you create space, you learn very quickly who is truly invested in you and who is only drawn to the convenience of your attention. Those who disappear when you stop chasing were never yours to begin with. They were parasites feeding off your energy, not partners willing to build alongside you. Your discomfort filters your world. It exposes false alliances. It burns away illusions you might have clung to if you had kept chasing. Yes, it hurts, But oh, the clarity it brings. It is in this clarity that real transformation begins. Every future victory you seek, whether in love, in career, in personal growth, requires that you build this muscle. The muscle of enduring discomfort without flinching. The muscle of holding your position even when the world offers you 1,000 easy outs. Because once you have tasted the fire and survived the petty demands of life, the neediness of others, the judgments of those who do not know your path, will seem like whispers against the roaring certainty of your spirit. You will move through the world differently, not boastful, not arrogant, but anchored, quietly unshakable. And others will feel it. They will feel the depth of someone who has suffered for their strength and survived. Now, I will not ask you to comment for the sake of engagement, but if you have felt this growth, if you have endured the discomfort of restraint and emerged stronger, I invite you to share your testimony below. Your story of forging through the fire might just be the encouragement another brother or sister on this journey desperately needs to hear. Let the world know, I choose the fire. I choose the forge. I choose to rise. If you are bold enough, write it. If you are wise enough, live it. Now let us continue deeper into the heart of true power. 4. The power of letting go. There is an ancient wisdom hidden in the act of letting go. Not the letting go of defeat, nor the letting go of resignation, but a deliberate, sovereign release. A release that says, I am whole without what I thought I needed. When you vanish instead of chasing, what you are truly practicing is the power of letting go. You are severing the invisible thread that connects your sense of worth to someone else's recognition of it. You are telling yourself and the universe that your value does not shrink when it goes unacknowledged, nor does it inflate when it is celebrated. It simply is. Most people believe that attachment is love. They believe that clinging is proof of caring, that relentless pursuit is evidence of commitment. But true love, true respect begins not in attachment, but in freedom. In the ability to say, I choose you, but I do not need you to complete me. Letting go is not weakness. It is the final, ultimate form of strength. It says, I trusted, I cared, I gave my best, and now I surrender what is beyond my control. Consider the sailor who battles the raging seas. There are moments where no amount of strength, no amount of effort can fight the tide. In those moments, survival depends not on resistance, but on surrender. On flowing with forces larger than oneself, until a new opportunity emerges. So too in relationships. To let go is to trust the flow of life, more than your own ego's desperate narratives. It is to say, if this person is meant for my journey, nothing will keep them away. And if they are not, no amount of chasing will anchor them by my side. When you vanish, when you refuse to chase, you are teaching yourself that peace is not contingent on possession, that happiness is not dependent on outcome, that love can be given freely, without the desperate need to extract a particular response. This is terrifying, because to let go means you must face your own emptiness. You must confront the hollow spaces that you once expected another person to fill. But in doing so, you find something far more precious. You find that you were never hollow at all. You find that you are the ocean, not the drifting ship. You find that your own depths are more profound than any surface-level attention you ever sought. And here lies the paradox. When you let go, not performatively, not manipulatively, but truly, you often create the only conditions under which authentic connection can be born. Because true connection requires freedom. Freedom for you to be yourself. Freedom for them to choose you without coercion. When people feel your neediness, they instinctively pull away. When they feel your freedom, they are drawn in by curiosity, respect, and genuine affection. Letting go does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop trying to control. It means you care without chains. You love without demands. You walk away with dignity when necessary. It is in this dignified silence, this sovereign peace, that your true magnetism is forged. Now I challenge you. Think of one situation in your life right now, romantic, professional, personal, where your tight grip might be doing more harm than good, where letting go might free both you and the other party to grow into something greater. Reflect on it, and if you are brave enough, declare it in the comments below. I release what is not mine to control. I trust the flow of life. Your courage to let go is your gateway to becoming unstoppable. Let us move now to a deeper strategy, the art of disappearing with purpose. 5. Disappear strategically. Disappearance, when executed with wisdom and precision, is not an act of weakness. It is an act of supreme strength. It is not fleeing the battlefield. It is choosing the higher ground. You do not vanish as a tantrum. You do not vanish to punish. You vanish to reclaim sovereignty over your mind, your heart, and your destiny. Strategic disappearance is a tool of those who understand that energy is not infinite, that your presence must be given intentionally, or it will be devalued by those who mistake it for an entitlement. When she thought you would chase, she imagined a predictable script, a withdrawal, followed by your frantic pursuit, an attention test passed by your desperation. But instead, you disappeared. You refused to audition for a role in a play you never agreed to perform in. You chose silence over scramble, distance over disarray. And in doing so, you did not merely withdraw your physical presence. You withdrew your psychic availability. You pulled back the invisible lines of energetic attachment that tethered you to another's validation. Strategic disappearance begins not in action, but in internal detachment. It is not merely blocking a number or ignoring a message. It is cleaning the inner palace of your mind from the dust of dependency. You must disappear first within yourself. You must become a closed loop, deriving sustenance from your own roots. This inner disappearance manifests outwardly in subtle but undeniable ways. You no longer seek updates about them. You no longer craft imaginary conversations in your mind. You no longer arrange your life around the slim possibility of their return. You return to your own mission. You double down on your own path. You become the gravity around which others must orbit. Not because you demand it, but because your mass has grown too immense to ignore. Strategic disappearance also means choosing your absences wisely. Not every slight deserves your withdrawal. Not every discomfort warrants your distance. But when you see consistent patterns of disrespect, indifference, emotional games, you do not debate. You do not bargain. You vanish, quietly, calmly, with no dramatic declarations, with no desperate pleas. Your absence becomes your loudest statement. It says everything that words could never articulate without staining your dignity. And here lies another paradox. In your disappearance, you often become more present in their mind than you ever were through your presence. Your absence creates an echo, a haunting reminder that your energy was rare. And it cannot simply be summoned at will. But whether or not they come to this realization is irrelevant. The true purpose of disappearing strategically is not to elicit a reaction. It is to preserve and elevate your own spirit. And that is something no one can take from you. Pause now and consider, where in your life have you been too available, too accessible, too willing to chase validation instead of commanding respect through strategic absence? If a clear example comes to mind, let this be your turning point. If you are ready to disappear where you are undervalued, to withdraw your energy with grace and power. Declare this in the comments below. My energy is sacred. I choose where it flows. Those who dare to vanish with purpose often return stronger than ever. And sometimes, they never return at all, because they no longer need to. We continue now to explore what happens next when the seeds you planted through your absence begin to bear their hidden fruit. 6. The return is rare but real. When you choose to disappear, strategically, when you withhold your pursuit and instead anchor yourself in stoic silence, you must accept a harsh but liberating truth. Not everyone will return. And that is precisely how it should be. You see, many expect disappearance to be a tactic, a maneuver designed to pull others back into orbit. They believe that by withholding, by vanishing, they are guaranteed a flood of renewed attention, apology, or regret. But the real Stoic knows better. He understands that the return is rare. He knows that when you release someone into the wild winds of life, most will be carried away, never to circle back. And this must not disturb your spirit, because the true purpose of disappearing was never to control another's path. It was to reclaim your own. Yet, paradoxically, there are times when disappearance does cause a rare and profound awakening in another. When your absence cracks the surface of their self-absorption. When the silence you leave behind speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. It may come weeks later, months later, in some cases even years later. A message, a sudden reappearance, a look of recognition that says, I see now what I could not see then. But here is the test of the everlasting Stoic. When they return, if they return, you must greet them. Not with desperation, not with resentment, but with calm discernment. You must evaluate not their apologies, but their actions, not their regret, but their growth. Many will return, not because they have changed, but because your absence inconvenienced them, because they miss the attention you gave, not the person you are. You must see clearly through the veil of longing and nostalgia. You must ask, has this person evolved, or are they simply seeking to consume again what they once took for granted? Because if you accept the return of those who have not truly changed, you undermine the very sovereignty you fought to reclaim. The Stoic is not cruel, but he is ruthless in his standards. He will welcome true growth. He will forgive past misunderstandings, born of ignorance. But he will not lower the fortress walls he rebuilt brick by brick, simply because someone knocks in the night. The reality is this: true self-respect means being at peace whether they return or not. It means your life is no longer a waiting room for anyone's apology. If they come back, they must find you thriving, not frozen in longing, not imprisoned by nostalgia, thriving. And sometimes, they will find you so far beyond the point they left you that reconciliation becomes impossible. Not because you are bitter, but because you have simply grown past the chapter they abandoned. This is not tragedy. It is victory. It is the beautiful, inevitable outcome of a life lived in disciplined commitment to self-mastery. So do not wait. Do not hope, as a beggar hopes for alms. Hope, if you must, as a king hopes for rain, welcoming it, but never depending on it for survival. Now reflect. Has someone ever returned to you after you had grown beyond the person they once knew? How did you handle their return? Did you allow nostalgia to lower your standards, or did you remain loyal to your new self? If you have a story, whether painful or empowering, share it in the comments. Let your journey strengthen someone else, navigating the delicate path of letting go and moving on. And if you are committing today to never wait, to never shrink back into a smaller version of yourself for anyone's return, write this below. I welcome growth. I do not wait for the past. Your future deserves nothing less. Now, let us look further into the grander strategy, how true, unemotional indifference is the ultimate power in the long game of life. 7. Indifference wins the long game. The ultimate power in human relationships is not affection. It is not anger. It is not even hatred. It is indifference. Indifference is not apathy. Apathy is lifelessness, numbness, decay. True indifference, the indifference of the Stoic, is something else entirely. It is calm, aware, rooted non-attachment. It is the deep, unshakable understanding that your worth, your peace, your direction are not tied to the actions, whims, or presence of anyone else. When you achieve true indifference, you win the long game of life without lifting a finger. Because those who need you to react, who thrive on your attention, your energy, your validation, become powerless before your calm. They cannot provoke you. They cannot manipulate you. They cannot shake you from the throne of your own self-possession. Indifference is not a performance. It is not pretending you do not care while secretly burning inside. It is truly being at peace regardless of outcomes. If they come back, good. If they stay gone, good. If they speak well of you, good. If they lie about you, good. Your path continues. Your spirit remains untouched. The Stoic understands, emotional turbulence is the weapon of the weak. It is the snare of the insecure, but indifference is the shield of the strong. It is why empires rise not through fits of rage, but through cold, measured endurance. It is why true leaders are followed, not because they demand loyalty, but because their calm inspires it. Indifference also frees your attention. When you stop obsessing over outcomes, over who stayed and who left, over what could have been, you unleash a flood of energy back into your mission, into your growth, into your creation. Energy wasted on reaction is energy stolen from destiny. Indifference restores your destiny. But beware, reaching indifference requires work. You cannot simply tell yourself to stop caring. You must build a life so full, so meaningful, so abundant in purpose, that you have no need to cling to any one person's role within it. You must cultivate friendships that are mutual, supportive, strong. You must immerse yourself in your health, your craft, your pursuits. You must find such joy in your own unfolding that any departure from your life, while noticed, is not devastating. And so the irony, once again, it is not indifference that kills connection. It is indifference that protects genuine connection. Because only when you are free can you love purely. Only when you are unattached can you give without bargaining for return. And this freedom will be felt by everyone you meet. Some will be intimidated by it. Some will be magnetized by it. But all will respect it. Ask yourself, where in your life are you still too attached to outcomes? Where does the presence or absence of another still dictate your emotional state? Identify these places. They are not marks of shame. They are invitations to grow. And if you are ready, truly ready, to claim the power of indifference in your life, write this in the comments. My peace is not negotiable. My mission is my anchor. Let it be more than words. Let it be your new reality. We move next into a bold reclaiming. How you seize back the narrative of your own life story, rather than letting anyone else write your ending. 8. Reclaim your life narrative. Life will hand you many scripts. Scripts written by parents who never healed their own wounds. Scripts written by lovers who valued control over freedom. Scripts written by a society that demands conformity, obedience, smallness. If you are not vigilant, you will live and die inside a story that was never yours. You will follow a narrative where you are perpetually chasing validation, shrinking your soul to fit someone else's comfort zone. forfeiting your true potential for the fleeting approval of those who neither know your depths nor respect your purpose. But the everlasting Stoic rejects this fate. He understands that the greatest rebellion, the greatest act of creation, is the conscious reclaiming of one's own life narrative. When you vanished instead of chasing, you took the first and most critical step in this reclamation. You rejected the script that said your worth is proved by your pursuit of another. You chose instead a new storyline. My worth is innate. My path is sovereign. This act, this simple, brutal refusal to dance to someone else's tune, is far more profound than most realize. Because every time you refuse to chase where you are disrespected, every time you choose silence over explanation, every time you prioritize your growth over your ego's desperate craving for validation, you are rewriting the story of your life. You are becoming the author, not the character. And this change ripples into every part of your existence. You begin to see your past differently. You stop viewing past failures and heartbreaks as signs of inadequacy. You start seeing them as chapters in the forging of your character. Necessary fires that burned away the illusions you once clung to. You begin to see your present differently. You realize that every moment is a blank page. You are not trapped by what you were taught, by how others defined you. You can choose, today, a new way of being. And most importantly, you see your future differently. You no longer imagine yourself as a leaf blown by the winds of circumstance. You see yourself as the storm itself, the one who bends the winds to your will through sheer endurance, clarity, and devotion to a higher vision. Reclaiming your life narrative is not about bravado. It is not about loudly declaring your independence while secretly craving validation. It is about a quiet, daily discipline. The discipline to say no when you must. The discipline to walk away when your dignity demands it. The discipline to pour yourself into your mission even when applause is absent. Understand, society is not neutral. It rewards those who comply. It punishes those who dare to think, feel, and live differently. To reclaim your narrative is to accept exile from the safe mediocrity of the herd. It is to walk alone at times. It is to endure the loneliness of not being understood. But the reward is everything. The reward is a life that feels yours. A life not borrowed from someone else's expectations. A life sculpted by your own values, your own vision, your own indomitable spirit. And slowly, but inevitably, those who belong to your true story will find you. Not the manipulators who demand you shrink, not the insecure who need you to chase them to feel validated, but the rare souls who recognize your strength, your depth, your sovereignty, and who choose to walk beside you. Not ahead, not behind, but beside. This is not just about relationships. It is about every dimension of existence. When you reclaim your narrative, you no longer accept jobs that suffocate you for a paycheck. You no longer keep friendships rooted in convenience rather than growth. You no longer pursue goals that were programmed into you by a culture addicted to distraction and mediocrity. You rise. Slowly, relentlessly, powerfully, you become a living testament to what happens when a human being refuses to betray their own soul for the approval of the unworthy. This path is not easy. There will be nights when the silence feels unbearable. There will be mornings when doubt gnaws at the edges of your ambition. But if you endure, if you stay loyal to the story you are writing, you will wake one day and realize, I am free. I am sovereign. I am home within myself. And no force on earth can take that from you. Pause with me now. Reflect. Where in your life have you accepted a script that was never truly yours? Where are you still chasing approval? still performing a role you never chose with your full heart, find one place, just one, and commit to rewriting it. If you are ready to burn the old scripts and write a new chapter in your own words, declare it below. I reclaim my story. I choose my path. Let your declaration be the first sentence of the next and greatest chapter of your life. We are nearing the end of this journey, but there remains one final crucial truth to embrace: the ultimate power of silence itself. 9. Silence is your final word. There comes a point in every journey where words lose their meaning, where explanations ring hollow, where arguments become circular, draining and futile. At that point, if you are wise, you do not fight harder. You do not plead louder. You do not negotiate with the deaf. You simply go silent, because silence is not an absence of communication. It is a communication more powerful than any barrage of words. Silence says, "I will not waste my breath, proving my worth. I will not lower myself into the mud to wrestle for recognition. I will not fight for a seat at a table I am destined to outgrow." In relationships, silence is the final, unanswerable statement. When you refuse to chase, when you vanish with dignity, when you abstain from the desperate scramble for closure, you force reality to speak for you. Silence leaves the weight of interpretation on the other party. It creates an uncomfortable vacuum that demands introspection, or, if they are not capable, reveals their emptiness. The wise understand. If someone needed your voice, your apology, your explanation to value you, they were never truly aligned with your spirit. If they could not feel your worth in your absence, they would never have seen it through your words. And so you stop speaking. You let the storm rage around you. You let the dust settle. You let the echoes of your absence do the work your arguments never could. Silence is final because it removes you as a player in their drama. It ends the transaction of energy where you beg and they withhold, where you give and they measure. There is profound courage in saying nothing, in walking away without a final message, in refusing to light yourself on fire to prove you were warmth. Silence protects your dignity. It preserves your energy. It recenters you around what truly matters, your own inner peace, your own forward momentum. But understand, true silence is not a weapon you use against others. It is not the manipulative silence of the insecure who sulk for attention. True silence is for you. It is a declaration of sovereignty to yourself. It is the internal posture of someone who has nothing left to prove. Someone who knows that self-respect is not up for negotiation. Someone who would rather be misunderstood in silence than betray themselves through endless, fruitless explanations. And often, ironically, silence speaks louder in the long run than any desperate message ever could. Months later, years later, sometimes in the quiet moments when the noise of life dies down, those who mistook your stillness for weakness will hear the deafening roar of your absence. But you will not be waiting for that moment. You will not be hoping for recognition. You will be gone, thriving, building, growing, silent, still. But this time, because your life speaks for you. Ask yourself, where in your life have you been speaking when you should have gone silent? Where have you been explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you? Find those places. Withdraw your voice. Reclaim your power. And if you are ready to make silence your final, most powerful word, write this in the comments. I speak with my actions. I remain silent in my power. Stand by these words. Let your silence be the fortress no storm can breach. Now let us step fully into the final stage of this journey. The closing reflections and the path forward. Conclusion. We have traveled far together. From the first moment when you refused to chase, to the understanding of strategic disappearance, to the forging of your new life narrative, and finally, to the silence that echoes louder than any desperate cry for attention. You have seen, perhaps more clearly now than ever before, that true power lies not in chasing validation, not in frantic explanations, not in the need to be seen or understood by those who refuse to see you. True power lies in restraint, in absence, in sovereign silence. It lies in knowing that you are complete, not because someone else tells you so, but because you have done the work to make it so. You do not chase what is fleeting. You do not bargain with your dignity. You do not beg for a seat at a table you were meant to build yourself. You rise. You vanish when you must. You return stronger when it serves your path. You endure in silence when the noise of the world demands reaction. You are becoming the everlasting Stoic, not through slogans, not through performance, but through the quiet, relentless rebuilding of yourself from the ashes of your old conditioning. And so as we close this chapter today, I leave you with this. The ones who vanish with dignity are remembered longer than those who beg for crumbs. The ones who hold their silence are revered deeper than those who shout for recognition. The ones who live their truth without apology shape the world around them without ever raising their voice. Be one of the rare ones. Be the one who writes his own story. Not out of bitterness, not out of arrogance, but out of unshakable devotion to his highest self. If this journey resonated with you, if you found a piece of yourself reflected in these words, I invite you now to step even deeper into this brotherhood of self-mastery. Subscribe to the Everlasting Stoic. Hit the like button, not just as a gesture, but as a signal to yourself and to the world that you are committed to growth beyond the ordinary. And finally, share in the comments, what was the single biggest realization you took away from today's journey? Was it the power of silence, the discipline of letting go, the courage to reclaim your life narrative? Share it, own it. Let your reflection be the beginning of someone else's transformation. Until next time, stand firm, walk slow, and build yourself into something the storms of life can never erode. You are not chasing. You are not pleading. You are rising. Stay stoic. Stay everlasting.